Today, I'm sharing with you my experiences to hopefully help you have an easier time getting started with leathercrafting. Stay tuned. Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to Skill Tree, where we learn how to do just about everything. So in our first episode on Skill Tree here, you see not only my first attempt at leathercrafting, that was my first episode, but you also see just a sad man trying not to go gray. Seriously, looking back on it, I was having trouble understanding how dye worked. In the intervening years, I've gotten much better at leathercrafting and dealing with my natural state of being, and I would love to share that with you. Well, with just the leathercrafting part of it. When it comes to like style and hair color and all that, I am not the right person. Go somewhere else. Anywho, with this episode, I'm going to be picturing like if I was able to start over on my leathercrafting journey, what would I do differently knowing what I know now? So sit back, relax, grab yourself something to drink, and let's get into it. Okay, first things first, and I think the thing I get asked about the most with somebody who's new to leathercrafting or just trying to get into it is what tools do I need to get started? And this can sometimes be a bit of a pitfall, and I'm going to talk about pitfalls a little bit later on, like things I do different and avoid if I could. But the mindset of needing just every tool under the sun, a really fancy tool setup in order to do this is not the way to go. Especially when you're first getting started, because you don't even know if you're really going to love doing this thing or you want to invest in that many tools. All right, now I've done videos before in which I did like a really basic traveling leather kit, in which I kind of talked about what my essential tools would be if I could only choose a few of them. But I'm going to dial that down even further here and just talk about you're just getting started. What are the basic tools you need for the most basic projects? And for me, that really boils down to just 5 different categories of tool. It is cutting, punching, stitching, tooling, which is like a maybe category, and then dyeing. And get it out of your head right now that you need fancy tools to do this. I've done a lot of these things with just stuff I have laying around. Cutting, for example, you could get one of these knives. I do have one, but that goes to show how little I use it. They're awesome, but they come with a really steep learning curve, can be super dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, and are quite expensive actually. When from my first leather project to this day, and I just use like a box cutter. That's one of my favorite things to use. Has a nice thick grip on it. I can control it really well. I can change out those blades all the time. One of the biggest problems I have with that other tool is keeping it sharp. It's a moon-shaped thing, right? So sharpening that, oh, it's kind of a chore. This one, as soon as it starts to dull at all, I just replace out the razor. Super easy. Just make sure, and this is a mistake that I made a lot, don't be stubborn with changing out your blades. If you're going to invest in anything when it comes to a knife, just get a cheap body of a knife and get a whole bunch of blades, because you make one cut for a project, you cut a piece out, and that blade really does dull a lot. And there is nothing more dangerous, I say it all the time on this channel, than a dulling blade, because you're fighting through something, and when it finally gives, that's when you get yourself. And because it's a little bit more dull, the cut's ragged and awful, and don't do it. Another thing that's essential is some sort of a routine or something that like calms you down and gets you in the right headspace for a project. I can't tell you how many times I feel like I forced myself into a project when I wasn't in that headspace because I just felt like I had to get it done. Then I either rush it and mess something up or inevitably get frustrated with the way things are coming out and then have to spend even more time fixing old mistakes or whatever. So whatever you do that is like calming and restful for you, make sure you're going into a project with that frame of mind. For me, it's running out and playing with my dog or taking the time to put a good playlist together, maybe a great audiobook. And then in those times where I do get frustrated, things like today's sponsor, Fume, help out a lot. If you don't know what Fume is, it is a flavored air device, which does exactly what it says on the tin. It flavors the air. The way it works is it has these awesome little flavor cores you put inside of it, and then you just draw air into your mouth, and it tastes like whatever the flavor core tastes like. The one I have in right now is sparkling grapefruit, which I don't know, man. It might take the place of the orange vanilla. I really love the orange vanilla, but that one's pretty good. But yeah, I find the flavors really relaxing. I love that this thing is kind of made for fidgeters. It's heavy. It has a nice little clickiness to it. And what's better is there's no nicotine or vapor. It's just flavored air. And with the fun kind of rubber toppers that they made for it, I can chew on it, which is the thing I do when I start to like stress out or I'm trying to think of a thing. Can't tell you how many pencils I've destroyed just gnawing into them. This is much better for me, I'm sure. And actually right now, if you order their journey pack using my code SKILLTREE, you get one of these toppers for free. So that's pretty cool. So anyways, if you're like me, like a fidgeter who needs help calming down, or maybe somebody who's just trying to change some habit, Fume might be exactly what you're looking for. All you gotta do is go to tryfume.com/skilltree or check out my QR code right here to grab yours today. Not only do I really like this product, but honestly, it helps out the channel too. When it comes to punching holes, you can for sure get like a hole punch, a rotary hole punch, a little prickers here. You can get the singular kind of tubular hole punches that you can hit, which I kind of prefer that to getting these ones. These are great, super nice if you've got a lot of holes to punch, and especially if they're close to an edge. The problem is you only have this much space to work with. If you're just starting, you need more versatility than that, so you probably get, hold on, I have them all over the place, of course. Yeah, so it's these guys here. They're just this little kind of body with a space for the little nubbin that you punch out comes out of. And you have all these different tips that you can replace it with if you need holes of different sizes. But using this, if I have a hole that needs to be done really far in on a leather project, I can get it with this. You just need to hit it with a mallet. Whereas with this one, as nice as it is, it's only doing stuff on the edge. But if you're just getting started and you want to try this and you don't have the money to invest in these things, that's cool. That's not what we're worried about right now. Tools do a thing. So what do these things do? Well, these things make little holes, usually so you can sew, and these things make larger holes, usually for eyelets or something. Well, you can achieve all of the little holes with a simple punch like an awl here. And for larger holes, I've actually had really good luck just using a drill bit. It helps especially if you sandwich the piece that you're trying to like drill into in some wood, because the leather has a tendency to want to pull up the bit sometimes. But yeah, man, you'll get the same effect. You get a hole in the thing you're working towards, and that's all these things do. The thing there isn't really a good replacement for, though, and you just need to make sure you have them, are the leather needles and some wax thread. The leather needles actually have a bit more of a dulled point to them, and they slide through the leather much easier. I've run out of those needles before, and I'm like, oh, can't be that different, and I just had an upholstery needle with a sharp point to it. What a pain in the ass. It tries to stick into all the fibers, it gets stuck and mars up the leather. Unusable, complete pain. And though you don't need to have wax thread necessarily, it helps in a bunch of different ways. First and foremost, it makes it easier to slide through those holes. But then once it's in there, it does the reverse and it actually locks really well. It adds more friction, stopping that from coming apart. Though, as long as you have a sufficiently thick thread, you can just get a block O wax and make it wax yourself. You just run it through a couple times, so not a big deal. But with just that setup of tools, you can already make a whole bunch of beginner projects. Heck, for like a keychain, all you really need is a way to cut out the shape and maybe like a way to punch a hole in order to put a keyring in it. Super simple. If you want to get a little more fancy, maybe you add like a thread design around the back. Well, just punch your hole, sew it in, and now you have a cool design around it too. Now from there, let's say you want to advance just a little bit more. You want to make it look a little bit more clean. Well, now you got to bevel those edges. This will kind of go in the cutting for me here. But this, an edge beveler, is an awesome piece of kit, and if you are buying actual leather tools, I would definitely go for an edge beveler. All this does is it knocks down the sharp edge of leather and makes it look much more finished and smoothed over. Also, just like with wood, if you have those rounded edges, it's more resilient towards being hit. It doesn't have little notches that end up in those sharp edges. But again, what does this thing do? It rounds off the edges of leather, right? You can totally do that with some sandpaper. Just take like 180 grit, 200 grit sandpaper and knock down those corners. Does exactly the same thing. Not as well. This is definitely going to be cleaner. It's going to leave a smoother line. You're kind of hoping for the best when you're sanding it down. But at the end of the day, you are going to round it out and you can slick it after that to make sure it's nice and tight. Now from there, you can get into like tooling leathers, right? And even that doesn't have to come with a whole bunch of different tools. There's a super basic set that I use for almost everything. I think it's like this one here. It came with 5 or 6 stamps and that's it. And that to this day is still my most used set. Barring that though, I also have this episode here and I'm gonna do some follow-ups, I think, on making your own leather stamps. Really anything that makes an indentation in leather can be a stamp. As long as you can work it and make it so that it makes the type of design you're looking for. The heads of nails work perfectly. Screwdrivers to make a cool little star design, right? I've used metal straws to make little circles and things. Rocks if I wanted a real like gnarly pattern or something. Just don't do what I did at first and get really hung up on getting a bunch of tools. I got a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't need. Most of it I still don't use very often, and it just kind of sits there. But that basic set of stuff, I go back to all the time. Which does lead me to a bit of a pitfall, though, that I'd like to address even before we do the regular pitfall side. And that's waiting too long to get the correct tools. So like, is using a drill a replacement for this? Yeah, it is. It can totally work. Is this way easier? Hell yes. 1,000 times yes. I will use this 1,000,000 times if I can. Is a strap cutter an absolutely essential piece of kit? No, I can use a yardstick, get a nice straight line, cut it with my razor knife. No problem, did it that way for years. Having this though, oh my God, it saves me so much time. I cut a bunch of straps, they come out exactly the same size every time, don't gotta worry about it. Hell, even this thing, this is a like semicircle punch, just like an arched punch. For so long, I was cutting the edges of belts, anything that was rounded, I just carefully did it with my knife and tried to clean it up. This, one punch, it is done. MVP, I love these things. Necessary? No. Make life better? Hell yes. If you find you really love this skill, you really love this hobby and you want to get into it, do try to start building up your tool set. It doesn't have to be all at once. As you need things, get a nicer version of that, and then you have it. Take good care of it, like, you know, your tools will take care of you if you take care of them. But yeah, eventually start building up your set so that you have nice working tools for you. Oh, one last thing I mentioned in that list was dyeing stuff. This one's real basic. You can use brushes, sponges. Honestly, for years, I just used like paper towels or rags that I had that I dipped while I was wearing gloves and used that. Not rocket science, just something you can lay down an even coat of stain with. But you definitely don't need like lamb's wool daubers or something. It's great, they work perfectly for what they're for, but you can get away with a rag. Oh yeah, and though you can totally use just a regular hammer, don't rely on a hammer for very long. Get yourself a mallet. They're really, really cheap, like a little rawhide mallet or a plastic mallet. Those are gonna do you better. You're just gonna have a lot more control over it. You're not gonna damage your tools. It's not gonna damage the leather as much. It's perfect. Okay, the next thing that I would do differently were I to start over again with leather crafting is actually just taking a lot more time to develop my fundamentals before I go on to big projects. Now in that first episode, I was tooling some bracers, which bracers is a nice place to start. Maybe the tooling was a bit ambitious. You know, it is what it is. But yeah, beginning with beginner projects is a fantastic way to get to know the materials, get to know your tools, not to need as many tools getting started. I think I went from that one and like just a handful of leather projects later, I was making a full like cuirass or something. It wasn't the time to be doing it. It came out okay-ish. I would change a lot with it, but yeah. But during those fundamental projects, when you're making things like coasters or card holders, where you're learning how leather cuts, how it shapes, different ways to sew it in order to make what you want. To this day, I'm still learning a lot of what would be kind of considered fundamental stitching. One, if you watch the show, you know I hate hand stitching, despise it. But I still need to look up things like when I want to make a corner joint, right? In order to do that well, it still isn't muscle memory for me at all. It isn't a thing that I can just turn to and go, oh, this is an easy way to do it, I'll just do it this way. A better thing to do is to kind of follow a roadmap for yourself. What is the easiest thing you can do with a small piece of leather to see if you like it? Again, a coaster, a keychain, things that don't need a lot of moving parts to it. Then move up from there, maybe something that I have to sew together. Now you have more than one piece that you have to join together. How does that work? How does it feel to put needle and thread through two pieces of leather and make them stick together? Is it hard to line them up? Maybe if I kept one a little bit larger, I can cut away the excess and now it's gonna be perfect every time. That's a cool thing to learn. My edges look bad. How do I make it so that I'm smoother with my cuts or sanding them down? How do I use my beveler to make that look really perfect? If I want to go further, maybe I learn about edge coat, right? A little bit of paint on those edges to make them look even more perfect, kind of that rubbery neatness you see on a lot of things you buy. There's a million little skills to learn that will aid you when you start making the big things. For me, it totally works out because part of this show is showing you when I screw up and you can see me kind of getting better over time. So jumping ahead on things and realizing I'm super out of my depth and having to figure it out, it could be entertaining and it's part of the show and I do learn a lot. But just like with any skill, playing an instrument, learning a sport, learning the fundamentals and having that good foundation is gonna make everything that comes after it so much easier. Not only that, but it's gonna save you a boatload of money when you get started. You can start with some scraps, something really small. If you mess up, which you might because you're brand new, it's a tiny scrap. You're not really losing anything. As opposed to the first project you do trying to be this big grand piece of armor, you spend a bunch of money on it, you realize you're a bit out of your depth, and now you've just wasted a bunch of money and ruined some leather. Now that's the thing we're trying to do here on this channel. We're trying to make playlists for you that you can follow as we kind of learn things, but as I said, I have a tendency to jump around, so that might be a little difficult. But let me know in the comment section if you'd like something more concrete. We've been toying with putting together a way for people to get started in skills in which you can have easy access to like some super simple basic tools and projects, and then move up as your skill moves up too. If that's something you'd be interested in, I guess consider this a little bit of market research. Leave in the comment section below. I'd be really interested to see what you think on that. Now, as far as the material itself, leather, I would still kind of start where I started, which was with veg tan leather. There's just a lot more you can do with it. You can tool it, you can shape it if you want. Chrome tan is great if you have a very specific, maybe a garment thing or something that doesn't need to hold a rigid shape at all. But you have way less options on what you can do with it. Whereas with a veg tan, you can really do pretty much whatever you want with it. And I would definitely encourage you to start with a bag of scraps. You can either order them online, or if you're lucky enough to live near like a tandy, they usually have them in bags. But you can get some really nice pieces of leather that are just small scrap pieces. They don't cost much, and you can practice a lot on them. In fact, then I would also practice on the kits that a lot of these things have, where you're putting together like, I don't know, a wallet or some moccasins or something. Usually comes with a little bit of leather, some of the tools you need in like a how-to book. One last thing on the things that I would do differently were I starting right now is to get more comfortable with patterns. Not just making them for myself, but honestly like buying more patterns. You learn so much from the work that other people have already done. For example, one of the first patterns I ever used is this one, this Plague Doctor mask. It was from Diesel Punk. I'll leave a link in the description to it down in the doobly-doo. But this thing is really, really well designed. And not only that, but it has all these little complex curves. And from doing this, I learned how to make those complex curves. I saw how they were all positioned. I saw how these flat pieces were cut so that when they matched up to each other, they did this. They formed this cool shape. But I'm not only very stubborn, but kind of one of the things I want to show on this show is how you can figure out a lot of this stuff yourself. And though that has been fun and I've learned a lot for it, it is 100% hard mode. It is the hard way to do this. Other people have put this work into it. They've learned and they've provided things for us to be able to learn with as well. And patterns is just a wonderful way to do that. Were I to start over again, I would get a whole bunch of patterns from people who knew how to make good patterns and follow those along. Not only do you learn how to do this, but at the end of the day, you learn how to make patterns, which I also suck at. So all that being said, here's a short list of the kind of pitfalls to avoid here. First and foremost, wasting a bunch of money on tools you don't need up front. You can get a whole bunch of work done with a very, very minimal set of tools. In fact, you can probably do a lot with stuff you already have in your tool chest at home. It's harder that way, and I would recommend a cheap beginner's leather kit. In fact, I'll leave a link to one down in the description if you're interested. But yeah, the barrier for entry for this, although it can seem expensive, it really doesn't have to be. You can start off very lightweight. The other side of that coin, though, is don't wait too long to get good tools. Once you realize you like this, once you realize it's a thing you kind of want to follow up on, maybe as a nice hobby or potentially a business eventually, then you need to start building up your tools over time. I was stubborn on both ends of this. I rushed out and got a bunch of tools that I thought would be cool because they were badass, and they ended up not being useful for me. Meanwhile, ones that would end up being most useful for me and the things I wasted the most time on, like a strap cutter, the little rotary punch, I waited forever to get those things just because I was like, I can make it work with what I got. I can, I shouldn't. It's a pain in the ass. Next, we talked about not jumping over steps, right? Don't take on projects that are way beyond your current skill set. Unless you have the time and money to kind of throw at it that way, it's going to be kind of a wasteful way for you to start, and it's easier for you to get a bit discouraged. You know, you have in your brain, I'm gonna make this epic like helmet or cuirass or something. And then it fights you the entire time because you weren't sure how to measure it out right or how to bend it right. And then the end product isn't it at all what you had in your head, and it can be a little discouraging. By actually building up, learning those fundamentals, you're gonna find that you can do it very quickly, and once you get to that point, that end product you're like super proud of. But, and the final pitfall, don't let any kind of failures stop you from doing a thing. You learn way more from the screw-ups. I think that is the best way to learn. That's why it's great to start small, because you can fail fast. But failure is an end point. You only actually fail when that's the last thing you did and you give up. Instead, take those stumbling blocks and you turn them into stepping stones, right? These are things that taught you a lesson, and depending on how painful that lesson was, it's a thing you don't repeat usually more than once or twice. I say that because I've done stupid things multiple times, and every time I'm like, really? We learned this lesson. What are we thinking? My biggest one is making sure the caps on my leather die are screwed on tight. I can't tell you how many times I just kind of lightly twist them on and then forget, and then later on go to lift it up, buy the cap, spill it everywhere. Sometimes you just can't fix stupid. Do it all the time. So dumb. Anyways, if I were to be able to go back in time and talk to younger me, that's how I would tell them to start. I would tell them to avoid those pitfalls and to go easier on yourself and to kind of make sure you go with the process. And again, patterns. Really can't express enough how much I missed the boat on just having great patterns around. Now, I know this is more of a lackadaisical episode. I hope you enjoyed it still. Really, we just got back from Conquest, and I am so jet-lagged and tired. Not only that, but we did a whole bunch of projects before Conquest, and the workshop over there is a mess. Terrible. So to save myself and to give us just better quality content, I'm slow playing this one and doing some talking head stuff right here. I still do hope you liked it though. Let me know down in the comments section if you like this type of thing. Also do all the YouTube stuff, like hit the like it button and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. It really, really does help the channel. Also stay tuned, we are going to be talking about kind of our adventures in Conquest and thanking all of the people who helped us. We had a massive camp and we couldn't have done it without the incredible people who were at that camp. So we've got a lot of projects and stuff coming in that vein soon. In the meantime though, keep leveling up, you. You made it to the end screen. YouTube loves it when you do that, and it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Another fantastic way to support this channel is by joining these people's noble ranks. These are our Patreon members, and we can't do any of this without them. It's because of them I'm able to buy actual tools rather than just trying to cut through leather with a sharp rock in my teeth. A giant thank you to our new high-tier Patreon member, Rick Boersma, and an epic thank you to our Grand Master tier Patreon members, Ghetto Medic, WildFox99, Froggy, and Dragon Designs. Just so y'all know, it is extremely humbling and incredible that you support us in this way. It is just incredible to me. So thank you so much for all the support you give us. And if you out there would like to support us, consider joining our Patreon, link in the description below. Otherwise, honestly, staying here to the end screen or watching the next video that YouTube thinks you like really helps out a lot too. Now, if you don't mind, I gotta go clean my workshop. It's like a bomb exploded. It's crazy.